personal vision into the figure. I tell my students that sometimes if you get a job and maybe it's for Rolling Stone and you have to do 5 guitars, how do you look at each one separately to break them up? So, looking at them in terms of shapes and seeing them in terms of different shapes kind of gives a little bit more interest to your composition, okay? So now that I have 3 shapes, I'm going to draw the figure with that in mind, 3 shapes, and now I'm just going to give those shapes a little bit more. Maybe I'll do 5 shapes or 7, I don't know. Why don't we do one more? Why don't we do the same pose, okay, so I can hold on to that. And
where was I?
yeah, it doesn't have to be exact. Yeah, that's beautiful. Whatever you do is fine. I just have to blow my nose. I'm sorry because I have colds and Mel Miller was kissing me the other night. Sorry, folks. My partner's back there and he would say, Bill.
You're a carrier.
Yeah, there she is. She certainly is. Okay, so let me see. This is a little longer. It's this paper. I'm going to take a little bit more time with this one, all right? Just to show you that I am thinking in terms of shapes. So, I love her hair. I think it has a beautiful texture, and it's kind of wild, and I don't think I want to control that too much. And what I think I'm going to hit is grab the hair. And now I'm going to do a negative shape. I don't think I really want to put in the shape of her face, so I think I'm just going to grab her eyes. To define the face a little bit. And again, I'm still thinking in terms of shape. I'm looking at Dana and I see the shape of her eye and the shape of her lid. Okay, and one thing I do, I told you I don't use a lot of color, but I do use red. I think that red is great for fashion. It's very simple, and if you look at most of my drawings, you see I incorporate a little red. And I'll take a little bit more time with the lips and red. Okay. So now I'm here. I only have her hair shape, and I have some of her face. And I have to figure out, where am I going next? She's got that collar, which I think is really beautiful, and it's white. But since I made her skin negative, I can't do that. So to hold that, I'm going to have to just do a brush stroke like that. That's what I think. And then I'm going to go into her sweater, which has a really beautiful texture. And I'm going to hold the back, but I'm going to do something that I call, well, you guys probably know this, a continuous line. So again, realizing that I have broken up this figure into shapes, I can go back and still seeing it in terms of shapes, start to give those shapes a specific characteristic and build them on texture. So they're not as boring, they're not as stagnant. There's a little bit of movement. And remember I said I don't want to get too stiff with these. Then I'm just going to do a little bit of, I think, some energy line in there to hold the figure, and then I'll go back and I'll pull this down. I don't want to bring it too much. And I'll bring this up a little bit. I'll show you where I am so you get some idea. I don't know what these colors are because they all look dark to me, and believe it or not, I do that intentionally because I don't want to know what's going to show up. Sometimes I don't even look at what I'm doing. See what I mean? Which is good. It's good. I may not do that in the face, but I certainly would do it on the body of the garment. So now I'm here at this point, and just allowing some of this continuous line to dictate the figure and the shape of the figure, where it's going, and her sleeve. And now I have to handle the pant. And I think what I'm going to do for that, this continuous line, by the way, is also what I call a studious line in my book. It's a line like say you're doing a drawing of the face and you do the hair, and the hair is very haphazard and very quickly done, and then all of a sudden you go into the eye and you start to slow down and you become a little bit more studious with the eye. I call it a studious line. So you're actually studying an area of the figure or the face or the visual. It could be a farce, folks. It doesn't need to be a fashion figure. And so I call that a studious line. And now I think for the pant, to give this some movement, I think I'm going to do just maybe a quick little brush stroke. And I will use this brush because it's flat and will give me a really nice stroke with it. And I just have to find it where she's at and then just boom. And that's it. And then I'm done. You know, for me, I don't want to put too much more into this. I leave it like that. Danny, you could take a break, and now I'm going to have Tomo come out. And as I said, you know, sometimes the drips are really good. I love drips in the work. I use it in my personal work. In my fine art, I do a lot of drips. And I kind of incorporate that. Wow, you're like a flower. And this is Tomo. This is the other model. She's up here. And these girls are they're fantastic in their own right. They're both artists and they're brilliant, and they bring such an energy to the class, and they inspire me. You know, and they're tricky. You know, Dana's tricky. I'll give her a challenge, and then she'll really push me, which is the best thing in a model. It's very difficult to get models who are exceptional, and these girls are just fantastic. Tomo, just whatever you want to do, you know? Whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, so, you guys have any questions so far? Not so quiet?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
You appear to really make a conscious effort, I mean, and thinking about it, between your balancing your controlled line with what you're calling an energy line.
Sure.
And it's not just intuitive, it seems to be you're really on top of it, where you're getting really controlled, and then you want to balance that with something that's rapid and loose.
I do. I think, as we all know, I assume everybody in here is an artist or an aficionado of fashion illustration or illustration, that there are so many terms in drawing and painting. You know, there's energy, and there is studiousness, and there is value and shape and line, and I like to mix it up. You know, sometimes the drawing will be very, very static and not have a lot of energy, and sometimes it will have a lot of energy. But for me, I like to play one off of the other because it's a good contrast. You know, you want to bring the viewer into your work. You want the viewer to look at your work. You want to take a pose? Because I'll talk well. You know me, I can talk up a mile. That's great. No, that's good. That's great. That's perfect.
Is that a real tree? That's my question.
Interested in the piece? You have to let their eye, you have to build the drawing or the composition with things that allow the eye to float and move around, you know, to not bore it too much. And I'm glad you brought that up, Dennis, because I'm actually going to talk about something after I do this with Toma, because, you know, this is so beautiful, and I don't want to get precious with this, but I love her hair. You know, I think her hair is great. And see, I'm already being a little precious with that hair, so I'm not going to be precious. Better already, so it has a little bit more energy to it, and I'm not so definitive with it. And then because I have that, you know, very energetic stroke at the top of her head, I need to define it. You know, I don't want this hair to just float and have no connection to her. So what I will do is I will go around the sides of her face, and her hair kind of shapes her face. And I'm going to be a little bit more serious about capturing those shapes. I think that's important. And so I'm here. See what I'm doing? And let me see. And she's got beautiful eyes and makeup. And so I think I'm just going to grab her eyes. Maybe just one. I sometimes just put one in. Keep them guessing. You know, where's the other eye? I don't know. But she has a beautiful, I don't know if you can see this, but a beautiful shadow across her eyelid running down the bridge of her nose, the side of her nose. I'm going to capture that, the whole of her nose. I mean, I think for me, what I love about drawing, it's each drawing is a challenge. You know, each one is different. You know, what can you come up with to make it a little bit more interesting, and also, more importantly, working from a live model. There's nothing like working from a live model. A photograph is fine because not all of us can have a model show up at our studio every day. But there's something about having a live model that the simplest gesture just changes the mood and the nuance of pose and what's going on with the figure. And you can't replicate that with a photograph. So again, I'm going to put my lips in because I love them. And just a little bit of color. Okay, so she's become very serious now. And I have to loosen this up a little bit. And again, the reason I brought this shawl, whatever it is, I don't even know what you would call it, is because it has a lot of different energy to it. And I thought that would be a really good shape to put in that more or less I can be a little haphazard with it. So I'm going to do that. Let's see what happens. And again, here's my energy line. I might put that back there to help draw her neck. I'm always trying to be economical. I think that's really important for me. I like to be economical, and I also play with opposition. So if I do something on the left side of a drawing, you can rest assured I'm not going to try to reproduce it on the right side. I'm conscious of that. And I think Egon Schiele did that in his work. And I have an image in my book, three street urchins, I'm sorry. And if you look at them, it's a drawing, it's a magnificent drawing of three boys. And you can compare the left side of one boy to the right side of that boy. And even though it's a shirt collar, and we know a collar doesn't change from one side to the other, he was very contrived in how he portrayed that collar. One collar is curved lines, and one collar is straight lines. One collar is a bit up higher on a diagonal, and the other collar is a bit lower. So if ever you do a drawing, I find, are you okay, Tona? Because you're fantastic. I'm going to let this dry a little bit. I find that just going in and drawing and sketching is fun sometimes. But if you really want to train your eye, then you should try to use one line and make that line very precious. Because if you're using one line, then it becomes much more important. If you draw the figure, anybody can draw the figure in a gesture drawing and do 50 lines. And one of those lines is going to hit it. But you're not working that hard. And if you are given just one line, you're going to sweat. And when you sweat, that's when you start really training your eye to see better than normal. It's like going to the gym and picking up a half-pound weight and doing 500 of them. Or going to the gym and picking up, which I couldn't, a 50-pound weight and doing 10 reps. You know, the 10 reps is going to be harder, but you're going to get a better lasting result. And it's the same thing with drawing. Sometimes if you're drawing and you're sketching, say, you know what, I'm going to nail that person's head in just one line. And then once you have that under your belt, then try to play with opposition, even though it's, maybe a symmetrical visual. And say, well, I'm going to play the right side against the left side. And whatever line I put on the right side will not be reproduced on the left side. Does that make sense, folks? I mean, again, if I'm saying anything that doesn't make sense, you can call me on it. Yes?
Is that why you choose to just use paint instead of mapping it out with a pencil first? Is that one of the reasons?
Yes, I do, because I like to live dangerously. Right? And I know the body very well. So when I first started, I certainly sketched. I did not go there with a brush. But I know the anatomy of the body, and this forces me to see a little bit harder and make choices. Whereas if I'm sketching, I don't have to be as disciplined. But if I am making just one line, I have to really think about it. How am I going to nail that? I'm looking at the shape, how am I gonna put that in so it makes sense and has clarity and